Hey, Sharp Goat Photo Challengers, ready for round 5? Alright, so this one's going to be easier this week because as we round out the exposure triangle, we come to the last setting. Challenge number 3 dealt with isolation, so we got used to setting the aperture properly. Challenge number 4, which we've just finished, we've just wrapped up, dealt with playing with the shutter. So the effect of choosing a slow shutter speed, a fast shutter speed, and picking the right shutter speed for the situation, for the image that you're trying to capture. So to round out the exposure triangle, that comes down to one last setting to master: ISO. Now, granted, I thought long and hard. I even thought, there was really not much to do with ISO. I should really just explain ISO and not even have a challenge pertaining to just that. But screw that. A lot of people use ISO as, when they're just starting out, as that, just boost it up when your image is dark, and it'll make it brighter. But you really shouldn't get used to doing that, because once you crank up ISO to an obscene amount, and we're talking like beyond ISO 2000, 4,000, 10,000, eventually it gets to a point where it just creates far too much noise in the image, and you really just shouldn't be relying on that. So ISO is supposed to be the setting that you adjust last, you add to your image last. It's kind of a last resort thing. So after you've gotten all the light that you can out of your environment by adding lights, by opening up your f-stop, by slowing down your shutter, and there's no more light that can be squeezed from those 3 things, well, then you gotta add ISO. You gotta boost ISO to bring more light into your image. But you have to do it delicately. A big selling point for a lot of DSLRs out there that people get drawn to are when the either Canon or Nikon or whatever company says this camera does 400,000 ISO. Nikon just released their the new camera, the DS4, which is purportedly supposed to have a absolutely crazy high amount of ISO that you can select. The D4S is what they just released, and the top ISO that it can reach is 409,600. I'll attach a couple images into this blog post here so you can see the difference that, the kind of image this produces. It's not the kind of photo that you want to get. So while someone may say, wow, that's awesome, I want to take advantage of that, I want 400,000 ISO. No, you don't, because it renders your picture completely unusable. It is not something that you're supposed to rely on. Most cameras will say that they can be expanded to reach up to 25,000 or higher. But really, your picture becomes pretty impossible to, you really can't be using it once you reach that ISO level. It really, the only kind of person that would buy a camera intending to use that high of an ISO setting would be like a private detective that takes sleazy photos at night of people cheating on their wives, that sort of thing. The kind of the kind of use where you're not worried about the quality of the image. So check those out. I'll post those pictures as a comparison. But what can we do for a challenge? Well, I want you to actually see what the limit of your ISO is on your camera. So you will have to use a DSLR for this. So for those of you who are shooting with either your iPhone or smartphone or point and shoot camera, some point and shoot cameras you can still adjust the ISO. They do give you manual controls, and also with some photo apps on your smartphone, some photo apps will give you manual control. So there are some apps that you have to purchase, so you may have to spend a couple bucks to get them, but they will give you manual control over the camera in your smartphone, so you can actually adjust your ISO level. So that's what I would suggest. But get your DSLR out if you've got it. Go outside, take some night shots, and crank that ISO up as high as it can go. Make some noise. I want to see some really noisy shots. Some people see noise and they get frightened off, like, nope, can't. That's not one of my A-list images. No. A little bit of noise is not bad. What I want to see are noisy images taken at night. Crank it up and see, crank it up as high as it can go, crank it up, far above, 2,000, 4,000. Take it into the higher levels, go to the max, bring it back down. But I want to see some images where you, because you've adjusted the ISO to be up at, up so high, basically set your ISO first and then set your other settings like your aperture and your shutter to get your proper exposure and see what kind of funky images you can come up with. That way your ISO is bringing all the light, and you can adjust your f-stop to whatever you want it to be. You can close it up and get a shot which will be largely in focus, which you normally wouldn't get otherwise. Or you can also crank your shutter speed up to a high speed, so you can capture something in motion at night by completely relying on your ISO to boost your exposure up. This is not an ideal way to get your exposure for your shot. I want to reiterate that. This is something purely experimental that we're going to be doing, but we could yield some really cool shots. I have no idea what this is going to yield for, shots this week, but let's roll with this. Let's see what we can come up with here. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to get out a couple nights. I'm going to take a couple shots, see what I get with my 60D here. I may take the 5D Mark II out for a spin, or the 5D Mark III, and just see what we can possibly get. As cameras come out more and more, the amount of noise that you get out of them at the higher ISO levels, that is changing. So we can't be afraid of boosting the ISO a little bit, but we're going to take it to the extreme. So that's the challenge. SGPhoto challenge number 5, rounding out the exposure triangle. ISO, go out there, make some noise.